early. So let's give a few more minutes. I think we're still expecting one of our speaker. Imam Nuddin, أنت موجود? Wait for a few more minutes, inshallah, and then we'll start. It's quite dark. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Welcome to everyone to another edition of our fortnightly Uswa, the last one before the blessed month of Ramadan comes upon us, and then we switch on to the Ramadan program. Jazakumullah khairan for everyone turning up early. Sorry, apologies for the lateness in commencing today's Uswa. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala overlook our shortcomings. As we have advertised, today inshallah we're having a crash course, if you like, or a seminar on the fiqh, which is the understanding, the rulings with regards to the month of Ramadan. It's going to be an interesting session. We'll have about 2 hours to spend together. There will be a lot of time for us to ask our questions. So if you have anything coming up into your head as the speakers do their few minutes presentation, write it down, inshallah. And we hope at the end of it, at the end of the short talk, we'll be able to take all the questions and answer our questions with regards to the month of Ramadan. As we would know, as we've said previously, that part of the preparation for this blessed month of Ramadan is to learn the fiqh related to it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in an hadith Qudsi that you know me before you worship me. If you don't know me, how then can you worship me? So it's very important we learn this, and I hope inshallah that this will be a beneficial session for all of us. So we have our in-house ustaz or asatis. We have in the person of Imam Nuruddin Uthman, and we have Ustaz Ibrahim Ahmed. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, Imam Nuruddin, Ustaz.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Ayakum Allah. So inshallah, I think the first presentation, the way it's going to run, inshallah, the first 25 to 20 minutes for each of the speakers to present different aspects of the rulings with regards to Ramadan. Then after that, inshallah, I hope around 3:10 we'll start taking questions, and then that will last us to the end of the session, inshallah. So without much ado, I think if you, Imam Nuruddin is ready, if I call upon you first to give us your presentation. Jazakumullahu khairan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Loud and clear. We can see you though.
Okay, let me see if I can switch on my video. Okay, alhamdulillah. Present. Let me share my screen, please. Okay. Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله القائل في كتابه العزيز يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله القائل في حديثه الشريف من صام رمضان إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه صلوات الله وسلامه عليه رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي أما بعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has made it possible for us to come together this afternoon to come and learn and remind ourselves about one of the pillars of Al-Islam, and that is the month of Ramadan. Without spending much time, we are going to talk about some of the rulings of Ramadan, inshallah, myself and my co-ustad, Ustad Ibrahim Ahmed. As we all know, that Ramadan is a time of spiritual reflection, is a time in which our spirituality is boosted. And also Ramadan, being one of the pillars of Islam, shows how important it is to every single Muslim living on the surface of the earth. So inshallah, we are going to look at the importance of Ramadan, its virtues, pillars, and etiquettes of fasting from the Quran and Sunnah. Number one, Ramadan is a month in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives the sin of his servants, and a month in which a Muslim relationship with Allah is increased, such that the route to Jannah becomes very easy. In the common hadith that we all know about the two companions who came to accept Islam on the same day, one of them died not long after the acceptance of Islam, and the other died about a year later. And one of the companions had a dream that the one who died a year later entered into Jannah before the one that gained martyrdom 1 year earlier. And the news spread around. People began to talk about it. That how can someone who died a year later entered into Jannah before the one who died a year earlier? And the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam heard about this, and he said, why are you surprised? The one who died a year later, did he not have the opportunity to fast one more Ramadan? Did he not make so number of prayers? Which shows that for those of us who are going to be witnessing Ramadan this year, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to count me and all my listeners among them, Ramadan is a time in which we can get our ticket to Jannah. And it's a time in which we can receive from the forgiveness of Allah. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Man sama Ramadan imanan wa ihtisaban ghufira lahu ma taqaddama min dhanbi. Whoever fasts out of faith and seeking reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the month of Ramadan, all his previous sins will be forgiven. And we know in Sahih Ibn Ibn that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, fasting in the whole month of Ramadan is like fasting for 10 months. And fasting 6 days in Shawwal is like fasting 2 months. Both of them put together is like fasting for a whole year. And we know that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam also said that when the month of Ramadan begins, إِذَا كَانَ أَوَّلُ لَيْلَةٍ مِنْ شَهْرِ رَمَضَانِ, from the first night of Ramadan, سُفِدَتْ shayateen, the shayateen are shackled, وَمَرَدَتُ الْجِنِّ, and the jinns are restrained, وَغُلِّقَتْ أَبْوَابُ النَّارِ, the gates of the fire are shut, فَلَمْ يُفْتَحُ مِنْهَا بَابٌ, and none among the gates of Jahannam will be open. وَفُتِحَتْ أَبْوَابُ الْجَنَّةِ, and the gate of Jannah will be open. فَلَمْ يُغْلَقُ مِنْهَا بَابٌ, and none of its gates will be closed. وَيُنَادِي مُنَادِي, a caller will call, يَا بَاغِيَ الْخَيْرِ, O seeker of good deed, أَقْبِلْ, come near, face Ramadan with a good deed, embrace your Ramadan with a good deed. وَيَا بَاغِيَ الشَّرِّ, O seeker of evil, stop it. وَلِلَّهِ عُتَقَاهُ مِنَ النَّارِ, and in this month, There are those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will free from hellfire. They will never enter into hell. Subhanallah. You know, there are two sets of people that will go to hell. There are some who will go to hell temporarily and come out because of their sins. And there are some who will abide in hell forever because of their kufr, their disbelief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But a Muslim who believes in Allah may go into hell because of the sins they've committed, because of the kaba'ir, the crime they have committed, either to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or to the creatures of Allah. And because of Ramadan, their repentance and fasting in the month of Ramadan, Allah will erase their sins and would say, you so son of so, you will never go into hellfire. وَذَلِكَ كُلُّ لَيْلَةٍ. And every night of Ramadan, the month from the night of Ramadan, Allah will destine some people that they will never, ever go into hellfire. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to count us and our family, our parents, our children, our loved ones from those who will be saved and emancipated from our fire, who will never be thrown in our fire even for once. So let's now go quickly to some of the quick ruling of fasting. There is what we call Arkanul Siyam. You know, like we have Arkanul Islam, the pillars of Islam, the same way we have Arkanul Siyam, such that if this thing is missing, you cannot say someone is fasting. Okay? So there are two major arkan. There are ruknan, pillars of fasting. The first one is anesthesia, because when we say someone is fasting, fasting is different from mere abstinence from food and drink. No, fasting is different from that. Before it can be said that you are fasting, you must have the intention of fasting for Allah. So the intention must be there that you are fasting in order to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are not abstaining from food and drink and lust because you just want to do it, but because you want to obey the commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the second rukn, the second pillar of fasting is al-imsak, meaning that you have to abstain from food, drink, and any other thing that can invalidate your fast from the dawn until sunset. Allah says, وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمُ الْخَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضُ مِنَ الْخَيْطِ الْأَسْوَدِ مِنَ الْفَجْرِ. And eat and drink until you can see a clear distinction from the darkness of the night and the lightness of the day. So when we see that you must have intention, your intention should have 4 qualities. Number 1, it should be clear-cut that you want to fast. It is not that maybe I'm going to fast tomorrow. If they see the moon tomorrow, if I wake up tomorrow morning and I had a decide the moon last night, then I'm going to fast. Otherwise, I'm not going. No. That is not how to make intention. You have to be clear-cut. I am fasting Ramadan tomorrow, and that means, and we're still going to get to it, that means that before you sleep on the 29th of Shaban, then you must have listened to the news, whether the moon has been sighted or not. And also, your intention must be specific to Ramadan. That, oh, I want to fast a compulsory fast. No, I want to fast in the month of Ramadan. I want to fast the fasting of Ramadan, which Allah has legislated on me. And also for Ramadan and other compulsory fasts, your intention must be made in the night. Your intention must be made in the night because the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man lam yujamma siyam qabla al-fajr fala siyam lah." Whosoever does not have the intention of fasting before the appearance of al-fajr, of the dawn, there is no fasting for him. So, which means that you have to intend to fast a night before the time of Fajr. And also, according to majority of the scholars, they said the intention must be made every night. So Imam Maliki is of the opinion that you can have the intention of fasting the whole month of Ramadan from the beginning to the end. That I want to fast in this month of Ramadan from the beginning to the end. That is the opinion of Imam Maliki. But the opinion of most of the scholars is that you have to make your intention every night because each day of fasting is a separate act of worship in itself. So, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbali said that the moment you wake up at the time of sahur to eat the sahur with the intention of fasting, then that means you're already making the intention to fast. So he tried to simplify it for us. And we've talked about imsak, that it means that you cannot eat, drink, or have a conjugal relationship with your spouse from dawn till sunset. Now, what are the condition of fasting? Shurutu as-siyam. If these things are not present, you are not obliged to fast. Fasting is not compulsory on you. Number one, being a Muslim. Fasting in the month of Ramadan is never compulsory on a non-Muslim because the testimony that Allah is one and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah must come first before you say you want to pray or you want to fast. So if a non-Muslim says, I like the way Muslims fast in the month of Ramadan, I want to join them and fast. Yeah, fasting is not compulsory on children who have not attained maturity in Islam. But if they fast, they will be rewarded as if they are making nawafil, and their parents will also be rewarded. So fasting is not compulsory on children. And what's the difference between children and adults in Islam? Is one thing, the sign of maturity. The sign of maturity. Once the sign of maturity has appeared in them, one or some of these things, once they have it, then they are obliged to fast. Pubic hair, having wet dream as a male, or having menstruation as a female, it doesn't matter whether she is 10 years old or 9 years old. If she begins her menstruation in Islam, technically speaking, she has become matured. And if a boy of 12 is having wet dream, technically speaking in Islam, they have become matured, or they have pubic hair, they become matured. Now, whether these things, whether they see one or two or three of these things or they don't, once the moment they become 15, they are classified as adult as well, according to Sheikh Uthaymeen rahimahullah and some of the scholars. And also being resident. So fasting is not compulsory on someone who is on a journey. So if you are traveling to Saudi Arabia, for instance, to perform Umrah, yeah, then in that case, you are not obliged to fast on that day or whilst you're on a journey. But if a resident, if a traveler has had the intention of staying in a place, even though he's not in his house, but he's got the intention to stay in a place for a few days, then it is now compulsory for him to fast in those periods. And as a woman, you are not obliged to fast unless you are free from your monthly period and postnatal bleeding. And lastly, you cannot begin to fast unless the moon has been sighted, because the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Sumu li ru'yati wa aftiru li ru'yati." You can only fast when you have sighted or when the moon has been sighted. And you have to stop your fast when the moon has been sighted. But if the moon is not sighted on the 29th of Sha'ban, the message of Allah says, فَأَكْمِلُ عِدَّةَ شَعْبَانَ ثَلَاثِينَ. So you have to count fasting in Sha'ban you have to count the month of Sha'ban must be counted up to 30. And from that 30, because there's no 31, so the following day, then you begin to fast. So according to the UK counting, today is 27th of Sha'ban. So Monday is 28th, Tuesday is 29th. UK, most of us will use the Saudi counting. So on the 29th, which is the night of Tuesday, we have to listen to the news. If the moon has been if the moon has been sighted on Tuesday night, if the moon is sighted on Tuesday night, Tuesday evening, then that means we begin fasting on Wednesday. If the moon is not sighted on Tuesday evening, then we begin fasting on this coming Thursday, inshallah. So, and lastly, but not the least, so the last thing that we're going to discuss are what are the sunnah of fasting and etiquette. And to underscore the importance of this sunnah, you see, some people, when we fast in the month of Ramadan, so if we say fasting in the month of Ramadan is 100%, so doing some of this sunnah will make you to even earn more than 100%. So you have your full reward and more reward on top of that. But if some of the etiquette that are going to be mentioned here are not abided by, then that means some people are going to have 50% of their fasting or 40% or 30%, because they fail to abide by the etiquette of fasting. So some of them are actually important than the other, but some of them you actually need to abide by them in order to have full reward of fasting. So let us look at some of the sunnah of fasting. Number one, sahur. The Messenger of Allah said that sahur فَإِنَّ فِي السَّحُورِ بَرَكَةً. You should take pre-dawn meal. And in taking pre-dawn meal, there is barakah in it. Allah will put His blessing on it, which implies that it is a blessing that comes from Allah. And some of the scholars say the meaning of that is that it will give you the power and the ability to fast. It's also encouraged, it's also good to eat date during sahur. Yeah, it contains a lot of sugar and glucose that can give you a lot of energy. From among the etiquette of sahur is that we should delay it. Don't say, oh, I hate waking up in the night, and then you now take your sahur at 11 o'clock. So that sahur is better delayed. Finish eating your sahur by 10 minutes or 15 minutes to the end of sahur. So this is very, very important. And this year we are going to have two periods at the time of sahur. We have this winter time and the summer time. So we have to be careful not to eat in the day while we think we still have the sahur. So we have to be careful of the change in our calendar that will be happening at the end of March. Also, from among the sunnah of fasting is ta'jil iftar, to to be hasty in taking our iftar. The moment the, the sun sets, oh, don't wait till it becomes fully dark. No, just break your fast. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "La yazalu nasa ala khair ma ajalu fitra." The people will remain on goodness in as much as they continue to break their fast at the early period. Also, among the sunnah of fasting is eating fresh or dry date. The Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was reported that he used to break his fast with fresh dates. If he doesn't see fresh dates, he will break it with dry dates. And if he doesn't have dry dates, hasa hasawatin mimma, he will take some sip of water, he will drink water. So in that order, that is the sunnah. Fresh date, dry date, water. When we are taking a date, we are also encouraged to take them in odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, because inna Allah witr wa yuhibbul witr. Allah is odd and He likes odd number. Making dua before iftar. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "لِلصَّائِمِ دَعَوَةٌ لَا تُرَدُّ عِنْدَ فِطْرِهِ أَوْ كَمَا قَالَ." That for a fasting person, when he makes application to Allah at the time of breaking his fast in another narration, for a fasting Muslim, whether at the time of breaking the fast or at any other time of the day during their fast, when they make supplication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will answer their dua. So from among the dua that was reported from the Messenger of Allah to say that about Dhamma, wabtalat al-urub, wa thabat al-ajr, inshallah. You can also make other dua that are reported in the Sunnah, whether it is weak or authentic, because according to the majority of the scholars, anything that does not involve breathing from among the weak hadith can be used. So Allahumma laka sumtu wa ala rizqika aftartu. For instance, you consider, oh Allah, for you I make my fast and I am breaking my fast upon the petition you've given to me. And also being generous in the month of Ramadan. Anas bin Malik in one of the hadith that we are going to quote very soon said, "Kana Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam ajwad nas." The Messenger of Allah was the most generous of men. Shubo, I said it in Yoruba, but he said, in the month of Ramadan, وَكَانَ أَجْوَدُ مَا يَكُونُ فِي رَمَضَانَ. But in the month of Ramadan, he used to increase his generosity. يلقاه جبريل وكان جبريل عليه الصلاة والسلام يلقاه كل ليلة. And Jibril will come to him in the month of Ramadan every single night. To do what? To revise the Quran with him. So there are two things that we learn from this hadith. Number one, being generous in the month of Ramadan. Because when we are generous, as sadaqah, tutfi'u ghadab rabb. When we make generosity, subhanallah, I have just 2 more minutes. When we are generous, then the anger of Allah is quenched. So sadaqah erases the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also, now revising the Quran. The Messenger of Allah used to revise everything he has memorized in the month of Ramadan. Jibril will come to him and revise the Quran with him. Revise the Quran with him. So, as Muslims in the month of Ramadan, we are expected to finish Quran more than once. 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, one of the best way to get closer to Allah is finishing the Quran again and again. And we always hear every year that Imam Maliki, he used to read one Quran per day. One Quran per day. Shafi, 2 Quran per day. Ahmad bin Hanbali, 1 Quran per day. So if you are not able to finish 1 Quran per day, then read as much as you can, but endeavor to finish it more than once and be generous. And now, last thing is to fast with our limbs. Fast with your eyes, fast with your ears, fast with your mouth, fast with your leg, and fast with every part of your body, because the essence of fasting is taqwa. Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykum as-siyam kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. Oh, you who believe, fasting is made compulsory for you as it was made for those before you, so that you can be righteous. And the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Man lam yada' qawla az-zur. Whosoever does not abstain from false speech, that is not fasting with his tongue. His fasting is telling a lie. His fasting is abusing others, is cursing others. Wala amala bihi. And he is not fasting with his limbs, committing haram with his hand, committing haram with his leg, with his eyes, and so on and so forth. فَلَيْسَ لِلَّهِ حَاجَةً فِي أَنْ يَدَعَ طَعَامَهُ وَشَرَابَهُ. Allah is not in need of their fasting. Period. So don't waste your time if you cannot fast with your limbs. So please, for Allah's sake, let us endeavor to fast with our limbs. The Messenger of Allah said, when one of you is fasting, do not shout, do not engage in promiscuity, and do not behave ignorantly. Even if somebody wants to provoke you, tell them, I am fasting, I am fasting. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to count us among those whose fasting will be accepted and will earn maximum reward in the month of Ramadan.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khairan for that presentation, Imam. Inshallah, note down your questions, like I said at the beginning. For those who came a bit late, inshallah, we're having a seminar today. We have 2 of our asatis, our ustad in house, inshallah. So we'll go ahead and listen to our second ustad, who would go to some other aspects of the fiqh of Ramadan, after which we'll then take our questions. Note down your questions, please. Ustaz Ahmed, faddal.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على الذات المحمدية والآل وصحبه حق قدره ومقداره العظيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي وبعد أيها الإخوة في الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us this opportunity to meet again to try to learn some things and discuss before Ramadan commences. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to count us amongst those who will be presented to Ramadan, and Ramadan will present itself to them, and amongst those Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to accept it from as an act of ibadah. Ameen. Without wasting much time, I think having asked to discuss about things that invalidate her fasting. No matter how we prepare for Ramadan, no matter the plan we have for Ramadan, there are certain understandings that we need to have, like Imam Nuruddin has rightly mentioned. We should know the arkan, sifat, adab, and all of those things, because without taking cognizance of those things, we might find ourselves amongst those who the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that they have nothing. Many people are going to fast, but there is nothing that will be recorded for them in their fasting other than the fact that they've gone through hunger and they've gone through thirst throughout the day. There is no reward for them in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They fast as well. They didn't eat from morning. They abstain from their wife and all of those things. But there are a couple of things we actually have to put at the back of our mind whenever we are fasting so that we will not be forgetful or we act in haste and many other things. Inshallah, these, I call them the invalidators of Ramadan. According to scholars, they call them muftirat or mubtilat as-siyam. But for us to quickly catch these, I've categorized them into three. So the first categories of things that invalidate our siyam are those invalidators. That means that when you commit them, you are committing sin in Ramadan. First and foremost, you should know that what you're doing is sinful. It is a sin as far as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is concerned. As far as the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has stated, you are committing sin. And when you commit this sin in Ramadan, or you act this way in Ramadan, it calls for a payback from you, and it also calls for expiation of that sin that you've committed in Ramadan. And generally, from all scholars, they all, even though there's going to be some scholars who have some discussion on some other things, but all of them, they agree on the fact that the only thing you do that means a great sin in the sight of Allah in Ramadan and cause for paying back that day that you committed that sin, and you have to do the expiation of that sin, is having sex with one wife. Either it is halal or in haram form. It is that. So whoever meets another sex, another couplet with the wife or the husband, the man and the woman in that case, they are the same. They are going to have to pay back for that. It's a sin, one. They're going to pay back that day, which we call al-qada, and they're going to expiate for that sin, which is what we call al-kaffara. Al-kaffara, for that, means you have to choose either of the three options. The person who commits this sin that we said in Ramadan, because it is a sin. It is generally halal between husband and wife, but for the period of al-imsak that was mentioned during the first talk, if anyone should go into that, it is sin in Islam. For expiation of sin, the first thing is that the person will have to free a slave, look for a slave and set it free. There is no more slave and will never return, inshallah. The second is for the person to fast 2 lunar months. Either the fast is going to be either 58 days, or it's 59 days, or it's 60 days, according to the month that the person started his fast. Also, if the person cannot go through that, the person will have to feed 60 different people for committing that on a day. So the question is, if anyone should go through this, we should understand that the expression of the saying one is capable of choosing anyone, either go through 2 months fasting or select from feeding 60 people. However, this is something we should try as much as possible to do away from in the month of Ramadan. There are scenarios whereby in the month of Ramadan, it could happen. Maybe a questionnaire could say, for example, the husband travels, and like the verses read to us, if one travels and feels I cannot take on fasting on this day, the person did not fast. And it happened that he came back from travel and met the wife at home. The wife just finished his haida and they are both free that day. This one is not fasting, the other is not fasting. Can they meet themselves during that afternoon? Yes, they can. But still, scholars will advise them that they should give the hurma of that time of fasting. They should give it to the month of Ramadan. So we should not say, oh, because I'm not fasting, then we should just go into that. We have to be very careful. And by that is still that we should respect that month. That is the first category that calls for what it means the same. It calls for a payback, which is al-qada, and it calls for expiation of the day of that thing that we've committed. The second category is the category whereby when any of this happen, it means that the sawm is gone, the fasting is no more. However, the person is going to pay back only The category, the invalidators that calls only for payback, it calls for only al-qada. It doesn't mean that it is a sin, and also it doesn't call for any expiation of 2-month fasting or things, if we should go through any of this. Number one of them, example, is if a lady should see her menses now, okay? Then even if it is 2 minutes before iftar, Allahu Akbar. These are things that, well, it is the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And ladies, don't feel sad about this. Or you are even having more reward, because all through the day you've been fasting, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just brought that to us, and no more. We are not doing that. Fine, no problem. The reward that you've had all day is still there. It's firm in the sight of Allah. You are still going to pay back. You have another day to pay back after Ramadan. So maybe you won't even fast if it is not for Ramadan. So it is even a bonus for you in the sight of Allah. So don't let us see it as something to be sad about. It's the sunnah of Allah, the way He has created ladies, and we should accept it. And we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give us a reward on that. And anything Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes us go through, it is fetching more reward in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another person that could be in that state whereby you're going to pay back that day. So you should count. If I'm in my menstrual period, day 1, day 2, I have to keep counting very well. And I'm going to pay back those days after Ramadan. Or a lady who just gave birth or gave birth before Ramadan, and the postnatal blood is still there. I don't want to use the word fluid, because fluid could be many other things. Doctors could talk about this. It could be mucus, could be, if it is mucus only and it is not blood, it has another thing. So we're talking about blood here to be precise, because those could have other rulings in Sharia. So postnatal blood, we see the same thing as, so the person is not a sinner. Allah has brought that to you, but you have to count those days, and you're going to pay back after Ramadan. And when we say payback, we're talking about paying back before the next Ramadan. Because if we should carry it over another Ramadan again, there is another expiation we have to go through. This is another thing we'll be talking about later time, or somebody asked about it. Another thing is I'm sick and I have to take drug in the month of Ramadan. I'm not fasting because I'm sick. فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ, like we mentioned. Such person is going to have to take the drug, and you have to take, in fact, it is haram in some case for you to even fast in Ramadan, because we need your life to remain. Such person has gone through muftirat, however, is going to count the days is missing and going to pay back only. No kafara, and it is not a sin. So we should not be sad about this. There is one aspect that I will actually like to mention, that it seems like food, because when we're talking about things that invalidate our sawm, we are talking about things that go into our belly, or the shahwa of our private part, or the shahwa of the belly. So we have to take care of this. There are some things that we go through, especially this is for ladies, whereby we do not take cognizance of this. And I would like to mention here, because it's something we relate with every day. Say, for example, our lip balms, the makeups that we do. Some of them, unknowingly, we let them go into our mouth. When we put lip balms, they are edible. We eat them, you start licking them. It's more of you licking sweet in the month of Ramadan. So I will advise, don't use lip balm in Ramadan. You want to stay at home, just keep yourself good, because if those should go inside, many scholars of today, lip balms were not there in the life of our predecessors, but this is nawazil, things that we do now. If we are using lip balms and it's edible, we know we are stylishly eating. So we should try to do away from this in the month of Ramadan, because it could lead to something that is invalidating our sawm unknowingly. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is recording that. And like they say, there is no ignorance of law. The third invalidators I would like to mention are things that cause, they mean sin in the month of Ramadan. They call for payback only, no expiation. If you should indulge yourself in doing these things in the month of Ramadan, you should know that your sawm is gone, and it is sin to do these things in Ramadan. The first of them is eating or drinking knowingly in Ramadan. Na'udhu billah. A Muslim should understand this, because there are cases, people are in different positions where they work. People are in different organizations and they find themselves in places that they need to eat or to do some things. And they say, I'm shy, I don't want them to know, I'm going to pay back. No, this is a sin. We should let people know. And in this part of the world that we are, I'm mentioning this because it's a question that comes to scholars every time. And people ask, why will you do that? Let people know you're a Muslim wherever you are. And we live with the adab of Islam. So we don't knowingly eat in the month of Ramadan. And we don't knowingly drink in the month of Ramadan. So because sometimes we do things and we say, I don't want them to know. Why don't you want them to know? We don't hide our identity as Muslims anywhere we are. So knowingly eating in the month of Ramadan or drinking in the month of Ramadan, no matter how little it is, then we should do away from this. I saw a video, someone asked Sheikh Al-Arifi, that Sheikh, I forgot to, I ate shawarma. Then I had 3 liters of water. I forgot. And you have to be careful. This, the reason why we are saying this, and he asked Sheikh, do I still have some? The Sheikh does not even have an answer. He was muted. So we should ask us. The reason we are mentioning this is for us to have this at the back of our mind, because there are things that could happen unknowingly at times. Probably we're still going to touch that later during talking about things that does not invalidate our sawm. So we have to be very careful here and have it at the back of our mind that this time we are not eating and we are not drinking. Of those things that invalidates the sawm, which is also a sin, however, it's calls for only smoking. It's calls for only payback, no expiation, is smoking. Unfortunately, we still have Muslims around the world that are smoking. This is something we should do away from. I don't want to talk around smoking to the book. It's so sad. It is so sad that we have brothers or sisters in Islam still smoking. If we are the type, I don't believe there is anyone here that is smoking, but we are saying this in case we know someone, relative, family, friend, that we can advise against that. We should try as much as possible, because these are things that could invalidate our sawm. So why fasting then? At times, some people are drug addicts as well, taking drugs. These are things that are the fiqh of nawazil, sniffing drug, maybe licking it or injecting it, drugs, cocaine and things like that, hard drugs. These are things we should do away from the noon, through the time of imsak. Discharging sperm, maybe through looking or thinking or masturbating, or we have to be careful. Some people say, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam say that you can kiss your wife. You know yourself. And the mother Aisha radiyallahu anha, Abdullah said, kana yamlik irbah. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam has power over himself. You should know yourself. If you know that if you should peck or hug, something else is going to happen, then you should run away, because you're calling for trouble. Even if you do not do the if you do not have sex, but you've done the inzal, either a male or female, then you should know that you will have to pay back after Ramadan, and know as well that this is sin, because you are doing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks you not to do in the month of Ramadan. Many of these things that are halal, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that it is haram during fasting, you can see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to train us this time, so we should try to do away from them, because they expect the sawm. The other aspect I would like to go aside the invalidators of the sawm is that some things just invalidate the sawm. You don't have the sawm again, they are invalid. However, there are times whereby we fast. The fasting is there. There is a record that you fast, but there is no reward. What are those things that spoils our fast? They take away the reward of our fast. The reward that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. No one knows the reward of fasting. What are those things we should do? Generally, we should do away from sins. Sins of any kind, we should do away from it. Let us look inward ourselves. Sit down. These are things we should plan for Ramadan. What are those things that I'm doing that are wrong, that I think I should drop before the month of Ramadan? It is very important. It is very important that we think about this. It is very important. It is not worthy though. There are some people ask if I'm fasting and I'm not praying, there's as-sayyi'at la tamhu al-hasanat. Because you didn't do one good deed does not mean that the reward of the one that you are doing is not firm with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, it's incomplete of a Muslim not to do that. So we should try to look inward, sit ourselves down. What are those things I think I should do away from in the month of Ramadan? But there are very peculiar ones that it happens to us every day. For example, let's think about the sins of the tongue, things we say, backbiting, for example. Some people cannot spend a day without backbiting. They sit with their wives and they start backbiting, and we are only gisting. It's just gisting. But I think I'm talking to my wife. But we are already backbiting. We are eating the flesh of our brothers and sisters in Islam. When you find yourself amidst people talking about people, about someone else, make sure the only thing you will say about the person is what is good that you know about them. If you can't, just keep quiet. And it is not just enough to backbite. The person saying it and the person listening, they are the same in this issue. So when people are saying it, help the person saying it, tell the person, let's have this discussion after Ramadan. After Ramadan, when they bring the discussion again, tell them next month. Keep posting them. A time will come, they won't just talk to you about it. These are things that eat away our soul. And we all have had the hadith of people they brought to the Rasul who were vomiting blood and flesh. Why? Because they were backbiting. The Rasul mentioned that. Gossiping in the month of Ramadan. How will I just waste away my Ramadan? This time we have to be very careful. Imam mentioned perjury earlier on, vowing wrongly, things that you know is wrong. So we have to look at our tongues very well. The Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man lam yada' qawla az-zur wal 'amal bihi falaysa lillahi haja ya an yada' ta'amahu wa sharaba." So we have to look inward very well. What are those things that we say in Ramadan that we have to be very careful of? These things, they eat away our soul. The sins of the eyes as well. The sins of the eyes. What do you look? Pornography in Ramadan. Waste our times on films in Ramadan. Some people, they follow all forms of, mention one skit producer. They know them. Don't waste your time on skits in Ramadan. Spend your time, not waste. Spend your time with Quran, going to lectures, following shuyukh, and all of this. And that's what you should do in Ramadan. There are many other sins that let's look inward. Not just the eyes, just the tongue. The tongue is key, is very important, because we will talk. We will talk. Look at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He gave us eyes. There is a gate. He gave us ear. There is gate. It's inside. Don't listen to bad music, wrong things. Give us mouth. Put two doors there. This one and put another iron gate there, so that this tongue is not going to come out. So we have to think inward. And let's look at various sins as well that will take away a lot of reward from us in Ramadan. Some of us are still stealing. People, I was mentioning to us, you know, some of us we go to Asda, go to Tesco, go to these places, and we go there, we buy stuff. We don't go there with our nylon from homes. Then when we get there, we feel they are not serious. Are they not supposed to give me nylon for free? 10p nylon, 20p, 30p different. And I just take it, I didn't pay. I always do this. I don't care. Angels are recording all this, we know. And the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in hadith that we all know that atadruna man al-muflis, do you know the losers? He said, the Rasul told them, the losers are those who will come on the day of Qiyamah. They have good deed, they fast, they do this, they do that. But you just see on that day, just the CEO of Asda, the CEO of Tesco say, he's owing me 30p, he's owing me this. What are you going to do? Don't let us waste our time in the month of Ramadan to see that this is very important in the month of Ramadan. Lastly, to quickly mention is to note, I have 4 more minutes, things that do not invalidate the fast. At times there are things we do, we think they invalidate the soul, they do not invalidate the soul. One of them is eating or drinking forgetfully. It could happen. It could happen. Say I'm a father. It happened to me, maybe 2 weeks ago. I was going to feed my son, just trying to test maybe the food is hot or not. And everything went there. Don't let us do that in Ramadan, because Ramadan, it's going to be stuff. Even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you, though in the madhab of Imam Malik, the madhab believes that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you, but you should even pay it back. They don't want any tarnish, any dent on your Ramadan in Ramadan. So we have to be careful. So that we are not going to be like the person that was asking Sheikh that I ate shawarma, I drink 3 liters of water, and you understand. So these are things we should understand. We eat forgetfully or drink forgetfully. in Ramadan. Someone could even have sex forgetfully. So all these things we are saying, it could happen. So we have to have them at the back of our mind so that it is not going to happen. It's going to happen that somebody thinks that the sun already set and it's time for iftar, and later they find out the sun is coming out again. That does not invalidate some. Also, somebody might think we are still in the time of Fajr, but Fajr is gone. That does not invalidate some. We have to have all this in mind, and so that we have proper planning before Ramadan. When is the time? I had Imam say earlier, I'm not saying something in contrary. I just want us to be on a safer side. They say that your sahur finishes so time. Please don't do 10 minutes before. Do 30 minutes before, because that 30 minutes or 15 minutes, you are not going to die. It won't harm you. And they say it is this is the time for sahur. Exact time, the computer say might be correct. Please add 5 minutes so that you will be on the safer side. Of course, it's fine, but it's better we be on the safer side all the time. We pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept these as an act of ibadah and make the Ramadan easy for us, and count us amongst those Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to select amongst his beloved in the month of Ramadan and save us from hell. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullahu khairan for that presentation. I think a lot has been said today. Not sure if I should quickly go through some of the summary of them. So the pillars of fasting, the Imam started with the virtues of Ramadan, which we all know. So he went on to then start the fiqh of fasting. The pillars of fasting are 2. Maybe I should test people actually. Would that take more time? Probably. So there are 2: intention and imsak, which is abstinence from anything that could break the fast. Then he went on to talk about the conditions that make fasting obligatory on somebody. The person has to be a Muslim, a sound mind, maturity, being a resident, being free from any menstrual or postnatal bleed, sighting of the moon as well, or the counting of Shaban to 30. Then he went on to talk about some of the etiquettes of fasting, eating sahur, to delay that as much as possible, and then iftar, to hasten to break our iftar, and then best to use fresh dates, if no fresh date, dry dates, if no dry dates, water, if no water, anything else would do, inshallah. And fasting with all our limbs as well. Fasting is not just abstinence from food and cohabitation with our spouses, but it involves, fasting with our limbs, making sure that whatever we do with our limbs and our eyes and everything is actually in accordance with the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the sunnah of fasting itself. Then we have our ustad who went on some of those things that invalidate our fast. He categorized them into 3. First category is that which you are sinful if you commit them. Not only are you sinful, you have to pay some expiation, and then you have to do qada, pay back that fast. And the only one, according to all the scholars, is cohabitation in the days of fasting with our spouses. So that would be the only one that you'd have to do expiation. And they went on to explain to us what the expiations are. The first, freeing a slave, even though that's not possible anymore. The second one is fasting for 60 days. The third one is feeding 60 people as well for each day that you cohabit with your. I hope you won't do it multiple times during the month of Ramadan. You're in big trouble. It's a lot of sin in that case. May Allah save us from that. That's why I advise people, don't go and get married in the month of Ramadan or close to the month of Ramadan. It's not the safest time to do that, inshallah. Then he went on to the second category. These you are not sinful for. You don't have to pay expiation, but you have to pay back that day. And that is if a lady sees her menses or postnatal bleed and starts on that day, regardless of whatever time it is, 1 minute to the time, 2 minutes to the time, or 2 hours before the time, it doesn't really matter. You would have to pay back that day. You're not sinful, and you don't have to pay any expiation. The other one is somebody who is sick. I don't know if you mentioned a traveler as well. I think you mentioned a traveler as well. Number 3, the third category, these are things that you are sinful for. You have to pay qada, but you don't have to do any expiation. It's a sin doing them, intentionally eating and drinking, smoking, doing drugs, and then masturbation or ejaculation due to looking or touching or whatever, all this would break that fast. You are sinful. You have to make up those days back. However, you don't have to pay any expiation. Things that would actually usurp the reward of our fasting, that we have to be absolutely very, very careful about. You are fasting, you're following the rulings, but these things, if you do them, they will just be, taking percentages out of your fasting. Backbiting, slandering, gossiping, and all those acts like that, they could do that. They don't break your fast, but they just take away the reward of the fasting. And then finally, things that do not invalidate our fast, eating and drinking unintentionally, and all those things that he mentioned in that area as well. So now it's time for questions and answers. Imam Nuruddin, are you ready? Inshallah. So we've got a few questions already on the floor, and inshallah, the way I'm going to do it, we'll take questions directly from people, and then we'll take questions from the chat area. For those people on YouTube, inshallah, it's absolutely fine if you want to type it in the chat area, inshallah. We'll pick it up and we'll ask those questions. So if you have any question, raise your hands, inshallah. I'll come to you. But firstly, I will go to the ones that we have on here. The first one is, I think you mentioned this slightly. I think, yeah, maybe we should just leave that. Eating, Ustaz Ahmed, Ustaz Ibrahim, eating past the time of Fajr, thinking that it's not time for Fajr as well. Okay, and same thing goes with iftar, breaking the fast when you thought iftar is it's time for iftar, but then you found out that actually it's not time for iftar. You did mention that. Is there any difference of opinion with regards to that, or
actually there, since the person does not know, it is still categorized to be that the person has eaten or drank unknowingly. So either it is before iftar or after fajr, so it is still categorized as the person does not know. If the person knows, that's something else. And at times we know, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Balil insanu ala nafsihi basira, walau alqa ma'adhira." So you know yourself. We cannot fool anyone. We can only fool ourselves. So if it happens like that, the person has nothing to pay back. For inna Allah ta'amahu wa ashrabah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the person to drink, and all scholars, all school of thought. In fact, Imam Ibn al-Hazm in his Mahalla specifically mentioned this, that the person is free that way, is not going to pay back nothing. Only Imam Malik was of the opinion that the person should also do qada, that the person saying the person is not serious with so like it cannot be on. So, and the qiyas here is, you cannot be praying and say, I'm chewing gum on salat, I'm eating on salat, so I'm doing this, when you know you should not be doing that. However, the safest and where the majority of scholars is that the person is not going to pay back that day. Imam Malik is the only one saying that the person should pay back, and many students of Imam Malik as well also say no, he's not going to pay back. So that is that on that.
Naam, Jazakallah khairan. Imam, now this is a question to you. Imam, are you there with us? If you can do your video, inshallah. The questioner says, I couldn't fast last year because I was pregnant and very unwell. So they did fidya for 30 days. Okay. This year, exclusively breastfeeding. Okay. Yeah. So the question is, do you have to repay last year's fast after doing fidya? Secondly, can I pay fidya again this year? Because I'm exclusively breastfeeding.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. Now there are two things in that question. Number one, the person did not fast last year and she paid fidya. Does she have to pay back? Now, according to Abdullah ibn Abbas and Abdullah ibn Umar anhu, and Ibn Hazm rahimahullah said she doesn't have to pay that fasting back once she does fidya. However, according to the four school of thought, Maliki, Shafi'i, Ahmad bin Hanbali, she has to pay it. She has to pay it back, even though she's done fidya. Now, of course, the easier of the two opinions is what I have said, but to do ahwat, just to make sure you are not doing the least, if the person wants to do more and fast again, Allah says, وَأَنْ تَصُومُوا خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. And for you to fast is better for you. So whichever the person is convenient for, whichever the one is comfortable for the person, they can take. Now, with respect to now, the summary, there are some technicalities involved in that, but I'm just going to limit it to those two things I've said. Now, with respect to these coming years, there is one misconception I would like to clear first. Whether a woman is pregnant or breastfeeding, Sharia doesn't say that they shouldn't fast. No, Sharia doesn't say that. Sharia said they are exempted from fasting. In Khofata, if a pregnant person or a breastfeeding mother, ala nafsiha, is afraid of themselves or their children. So, and I used to say this, there is one of my neighbor who did not fast because she was fasting. I said, why were you not fast? Because she was pregnant. I said, why? She said, because I'm pregnant. I said, try it first. Maybe it's going to be easy for you. And she began to fast, and she fasted the whole month without any issue. So, unless there is a concern already about the pregnancy and the doctor says, no, you are not, don't fast at all. Yeah, that person, because of the advice of the doctor, they may, but the fact that they are pregnant or breastfeeding does not mean they cannot fast. So if they try it and they are not, they leave it and then they go to doing fidya and what you said. And about this coming year again is very similar to the last one. So if the person can fast, let her try. If she cannot fast, then she can do fidya like she did last year. Now, after finishing the breastfeeding or when the baby begins to eat something, then she can fast again just to make sure she's not doing the least. And if she's not able, then she is free according to those scholars that I have mentioned, and Allah knows best. So there are a little bit of technicalities, but that is the summary. That is so maybe
Jazakallah
Ustad
khair.
Ibrahim wants to add something.
So in summary, you mentioned that there are two opinions. One opinion is that you just pay the fidya like she did last time without fasting. However, that's the list in terms of what you want to do. If you want, majority of this of the scholars said you do fidya and at the same time you fast if you're able to. So whichever one you're comfortable, you do. And the same ruling applies to those who are breastfeeding. But you need to try first. Don't assume because you're breastfeeding you won't be able to do it. If you try and you can't do it, then you can do fidya like previously, or you do fidya and fast when you are able to. So that's the second question. This goes to Ustaz Ibrahim. How come there is so much punishment to not fasting?
I think it is clear, not fasting. It is clear cut when Allah subhanahu. There are two things in this world as we live. It's about I will do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructs. I will be obedient to Allah, and I will be disobedient to Allah. It's as simple as that. Allah says do. I say no, I don't want to, I don't care. That's just it. Just like a father saying, is there any big deal in me disobeying my father and disobeying my parent? So if you see no big deal there, disobey, and the repercussion will be there. If you see no big deal in disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no problem. It's between you and Allah. No one is going to judge you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the judge. And whatever comes out of that is between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his servants. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on us.
This next question will go to you again as a very short one. Does one have to pay back the fast that one did when, they've just started their puberty? So, they're not as serious with their religion at that time. So they weren't fasting regularly, or can one just seek forgiveness?
As far as the person is alive, it's just like this. You're owing something. He was a Muslim. as at that point in time is a Muslim, was just an unserious Muslim. So if the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying that somebody who dies, you should even try to pay back for the person. If you cannot pay back, majority of scholars, Imam Malik and many have said we should do it'am for somebody who dies in Ramadan and could not even pay Ramadan. Talk of me that I'm still alive. So I will have to count how many years ago have I been an unserious Muslim and start praying that. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us. Amen. So it is not the people we tell Afallahu amma salaf are those who were not Muslims and some other sins that you cannot actually do. But as far as you are capable, and the reward of you paying back, who knows? Maybe that is the only thing Allah needs from you to take you to Jannah. So we should try as much as possible to try to pay all those months back. Saum is not like Salat. Even Salat, many scholars of that, you should count those years and those numbers. You are going to start praying back. Now talk of someone that is just 30. Not just so, we should be serious. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us.
Yeah, I'm aware there are a lot of youth here. So if you don't want to have to deal with that, you better start fasting regularly now. May Allah make it easy for us. This one goes to you, Imam. It's a tricky one. Can you, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you clarify why the difference in the penalty for somebody who intentionally eats in the month of Ramadan is different to someone who intentionally, cohabit with their spouses? How such dichotomy between their rulings?
Yeah, Jazakallah khairan. Simply before I talk about that, I will speak a little bit about what our Sheikh just talked about. Ibn Masud radiallahu anhu was reported to have said that if somebody misses a day of fasting deliberately without a genuine excuse, he said, even if they fast throughout their life every single day to make up for one day, it will not compensate for it. SubhanAllah. So it is a great sin. Don't joke with Ramadan, please. Don't joke with Ramadan. And that is it. And if the fasting is so much that you can't even recollect the number of years, the first thing is you try to estimate. Try to estimate and patch as much as you can in order to do tawbah. But if you cannot or you are not capable, then what you should do, you should increase your istighfar. You should increase your istighfar and do a lot of tawbah and a lot of good deeds. And actually, this is actually what people has been said. You deliberately miss the fast in Ramadan, you don't even have to pay it back because Allah is not going to accept it. How can you be so stubborn to do that? So just continue to be kind to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is a very great thing. So please don't let us pray and joke with that. Play or joke with that. Now, on the question that is asked, this is a technical question and it has to do with evidence. Now, in the Sharia, our scholars are usually very careful on bringing out rulings or making judgment on people. Now, at the time of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there is only one incident in which a person had sex with their wife in Ramadan that we know of. And the Messenger of Allah told that person to make expiation. Okay. We do not see that a Muslim was so weak in faith that they now did not fast deliberately the month of Ramadan. There is no that evidence in the fiqh. Now, because of that, scholars then have two opinions on this. According to Imam Malik, rahimahullah, and some other scholars, they said a person who deliberately eats in Ramadan is similar to someone who have sex in Ramadan, So both of them, they are going to do qada and fidya, which is fasting, feeding 60 people or fasting for 58, 59 or 60 days. However, some of the scholars, they say, no, because there is no evidence for that, so you don't have to do fidya, but you have to pay that fasting back, the way to look at it is that your sin is even more than fidya. Your sin is more than fidya. That no, go and make up that fast and engage in so much istighfar, because there is no evidence that anyone among the companions of the Prophet now did that, and Prophet told them to go and make a kafara. Okay, so they said your sin is too much. Just go and be crying and be praying and be making tawbah to Allah and pay that fast back. So in summary, we have two scholarly opinions on this. The first opinion is that it's the same. Eating in Ramadan is similar to having sex in Ramadan. So among the first schools of thought say that. The second opinion is that no, they are different. You have to make sincere tawbah and you have to just fast that one day back. That two of our scholars, of the first school of thought, they said that. I hope it is clear.
Yeah, I think in essence, then what what you've told us is the fact that because the rulings in Islam are based on evidence, it's not necessarily because of the gravity of the two. They could be the same, but what we have evidence is that with sex, there's evidence that you have to do kafara for 60 days and all that, but there's no evidence for the other one. It doesn't make it an easy one.
It's more or less like chaos. So our scholars did analogy.
Now
you have to, it's analogy.
Jazakallah khairan. Moving on now, does swallowing phlegm kelebe invalidate the fast? A quick one, Imam. This is exactly the way they wrote it. Does swallowing phlegm kelebe invalidate the fast?
The kelebe that comes from your nose that you put on does not invalidate the fast. Allah.
I mean, so Imam Ustad Ahmed, your question is this: for those people who come from the region where literally maybe they have an hour of night and 23 hours of day, what will be the ruling with regards to their own fasting? Hayakallah.
It's just like aforementioned that everything is based on evidence. There is no clear-cut evidence that is saying that they should fast with the Islamic State that is closer to them. That is the only night they have. They cannot have their Maghrib. There are some scholars that say that they should fast with an Islamic country that is closer to them. So maybe Saudi is closer to them, or Nigeria is closer to them, and they have somehow very few places on the surface of the earth have that situation. However, there is no clear-cut ruling that is saying that they should do that. So if they have 1 hour night, 2 hours night, 3 hours night, that is how they are going to do. I think here in the UK, we've gone through maybe 6 hours night, 4 hours night. At times, in Egypt, there was a time iftar was 7 o'clock and sahur is going to be 1:30. So that is the situation of them. The time is going to come again whereby maybe by 2039, UK will be eating sahur 7 o'clock and breaking our fast 4 comes towards that time. So they will just have to fast that way, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to accept from them. I quickly want to touch on 2 things, because I have people sending questions to me directly. I think we should just send it in case we don't know how to handle it. There's a question that is very similar to the one Imam answered earlier around a pregnant woman. And I think there is one thing I just quickly want to add there, is that sickness are different, and we have to have the knowledge of this religion before we go into many other things. Scholars stress the difference between illness. A pregnant woman is not like a breastfeeding mother. That's the majority of the thought of scholars, because pregnancy cannot be taken away out of the woman that is pregnant at that point in time. So they categorize that pregnancy to be real sickness. So for someone who is going through a real sickness, majority of them have the opinion that the person should do fidya and should not pay back. If he wants to go with the opinion of those that are saying that don't pay back, they should do fidya. Actually, there are 4 opinions, many. There are those that say that both of them are not going to pay back, they're only going to do fidya. There are opinions that say both of them are going to pay back, they should do fidya. There are opinions that says that the pregnant woman only will do fidya, is not going to pay back. There's opinion that says that only the breastfeeding mother is going to pay back and is going to do fidya. Now, the case of a pregnant woman is similar to someone who has cancer. For example, someone who has cancer will only do fidya, and that's it, because that sickness cannot be taken away at that point in time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given that person min ashabil a'dhar. The same for a pregnant woman from majority of the scholars. If we want to go with those saying, but we have to understand, Imam mentioned, and I really want to rebuttress this. Because you are pregnant does not mean that you cannot fast. Because at times scholars were explaining, if you are in the first trimester of your pregnancy, so many people, they can fast at that time. We should not say, oh, I cannot, because I'm pregnant, I cannot fast. No, there is no ruling that says because you are pregnant, you should not fast. We have to confirm first from the doctor. Going to breastfeeding mother, breastfeeding could be outsourced. Breastfeeding itself is not sickness. But the thing we fear is that the sickness scholars are talking about, we should ask, is it something that is going to lead to another thing? Is it a sickness? Secondly, is it a sickness that is going to take time? If I should fast because of this, the fasting is going to affect me to get ailment on time. If that is that, the color of the blood that the person should eat, but it's going to pay back. Now, talking about breastfeeding mother, breastfeeding itself is not sickness, except if that status brings one sickness, but breastfeeding itself is not sickness on its own. So the scholars of the opinion that if you could outsource breastfeeding, if you could be doing, what do they do it? If you could put the milk in the feeder before the day and you can fast, you just have to look at, because we cannot understand the way Allah says, "Wa anta sumu." So fast is just the best for you if you know in kuntum ta'lamun. So just to touch that. Another question that came to me was asking, is Ramadan the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So the word Ramadan literally comes from the word Ramad, which means hot season, hot time. So Ramadan, that way. So there is no evidence that is saying that Ramadan is the name of Allah. The names of Allah are tawqifi. They come like that. It's not something that we coin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given himself name. Of course, we can glorify Allah in the best of ways, but Ramadan, if Ramadan was to be the name of Allah, it would be an Abdul Ramadan. So there is no Abdul Ramadan like that. Many people are being Ramadan. How do you want to choose name? That's no discussion of the day, but Ramadan is not a name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Jazakumullah khairan. There's a question here which I think we've already touched upon. So if one forgetfully eat or drink during the month of Ramadan and it worries if the fast is still valid, your fast is valid according to what our shuyukh have said. So your fast is valid. Don't be worried about it. If you want to pay back, you want to do voluntary fasting, that's entirely your call. So, but the fast is valid if you forgetfully eat. Okay, don't be like the one that went to eat shawarma. Yeah. So another question here is, does using, and this will go to Imam, does using inhalers or nebulizers for those who are asthmatic break the fast?
Now, the users of the opinion, no.
No. Hayakallah. Does one pay zakat before Ramadan begins or during Ramadan, or does one pay the zakat or does one pay the zakat when the current money asset or what one has during the year? That's a bit confusing, but the question is, do we have to pay zakat before the Ramadan starts or during the Ramadan, or once your asset reaches that 1 year period that we have? Please clarify. Imam Nuddin, if you go for that question, please.
Okay, now, Ramadan and zakat are different pillars of Islam. One does not have to pay their zakat in Ramadan. Get this question very clear. Now, zakat should be paid when your wealth has got up to 1 year. This is called al-hawl of Islamic calendar. So if you have £5,000 in your account, and that £5,000 is in your account, if you have don't let me say £5,000. If you have the minimum nisab, which may be maybe around £2,000 if you're using gold or so, and you have a nisab in the month of Muharram, you are not due. to pay zakat on that wealth until it has completed a year. Okay, Muharram to till Zulqa'dah. Then after Zulqa'dah, then you now pay zakat. So you pay zakat in next Muharram. So it doesn't have to be Ramadan. This is the first thing. Now, but many people like to pay their zakat in the month of Ramadan because of the increased blessings of Ramadan. That is why many people tend to do their zakat in the month of Ramadan. Zakat does not have to be in Ramadan at all. So if your zakat is due in the month of Rajab and you delay paying it in the month of Ramadan because of the reward, just make it known that people, in case you die, so that they can help you pay it. And if your zakat is due in the Hijjah, okay, 3 months after Ramadan or 2 months after Ramadan, and you want to bring it forward to pay it in Ramadan as well, scholars also allow this. So this is how it is done. It is not according to Ramadan. So it is according to Al-Hawl for most type of wealth. Or if it is your harvests, the harvest that you make, like you are a farmer and you make harvest, you have to have you have to pay the zakat on the day of the harvest. Not that one, there's nothing like a year. Allahu Alam, Allah is best.
Jazakallah khairan.
If I may quickly add to what Imam has said, because we're looking at the way the word is, hunger, poverty is going, it doesn't wait for Ramadan. And the concept of zakat, like Imam has said, is not just for Ramadan. So we don't necessarily have to delay our Ramadan till Ramadan, because that means we are delaying the benefit that others are going to get when they should have gotten it. So don't let us delay our zakat till Ramadan. There is a lot of, if you want to start your own calculation by now and putting it Ramadan, be it fine. If the whole of the Muslim Ummah is delaying to Ramadan, look at what we'll be going through all over the world. So sadaqah is always more than zakat. For a Muslim, your sadaqah should be more than zakat. So don't delay. Do more of sadaqah in Ramadan than waiting till zakat, just to chip that in. Allah.
Okay. There's a question here. If you are healthy but do not have food and drink to break your fast, can you still fast? Even I would say that's the best time to fast. If you don't have food, to just continue fasting. Just make sure you drink something at night to break your fast. So that's why I would say I wouldn't unless our ustads have something to say to that.
The person should just look for where he's going to eat. A Muslim should eat. See, there are some things, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never make us beggars.
Amen.
But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written rizq. And this also goes back to the concept of this. We Muslims, we should try to look for people around us that are hungry. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not say that we should just be doing sadaqah. The real Muslim, in Surah Al-Fajr, Allah said, وَلَا تَحَاضُّونَ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ. There are some people Allah is going to punish them because they are not looking for people to feed. It's not that the people come to them and they feed them. They have, but they are not looking for people to feed. We have to look for people. So if you are in need, brothers in Islam, please speak out. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has always put somebody beside you. Go to the mosque. In Ramadan, I don't think, except if that person is living inside one desert, inside one bush where people are not living. There is no mosque you get to, you are not going to get iftar. I don't think so. Even with the rate on this. So it's not an excuse that I'm not healthy. You don't even have what to eat anyway. Go to the mosque, you are going to eat. Talk to the imam there, they are going to sort a situation for you.
Please, I'm going to add to that as well. I'm just going to ask a rhetorical question to that person. If the son or daughter of that person is sick and they need the surgery and they don't have money, what are they going to do? They will obviously seek for help, isn't it? From people who can help them. So if you have to seek for help to do your ibadah, please do seek. Don't keep it to yourself. So reach out to the Muslims. And it also leads us to another thing, which is probably a reason behind this question, which I don't know, Allah Alam, is a Muslim should not live by themselves. A Muslim should not live, that you are the only one living, only Muslim that you see yourself in a whole community. No, you shouldn't live in that kind of place. Live, go and live where you can pray Salatul Jama'ah with your Muslim brother, with your Muslim brothers and sisters who can assist you Islamically. And so I'm saying something far, far more beyond that question. And I hope the general guidance given by Ustaz and myself should serve as a lesson. Wallah alam.
No, absolutely. I would like some people to talk. Nobody's raising their hands. You can talk. It's absolutely fine. I've been checking on YouTube as well. No questions on YouTube. Just to summarize, I think there is a query that I think the pregnancy and the breastfeeding mothers fidya is getting confusing. I will try to summarize it. Please add our asatida. There are different views among scholars. Whichever one you follow, inshallah, you are fine. General principle is that don't assume you can fast because you are in any of these two states. Try it. If you can't, then you go on to those options that you have. The first option is that you do fidya alone. The second option is that you do fidya and then you fast them back. The third option is that you do just fasting back alone. And the fourth option is that you separate between pregnancy and breastfeeding. Those are the options. Whichever one you follow, inshallah, there are scholars that have said it, but just make sure you do the best you can, inshallah. I hope that clarifies it. If there are any further questions about this, inshallah, I can connect you with the ustad and the imams, inshallah. Get in touch with MFB and we'll get your specific question answered, inshallah. So there's a question here that you mentioned that wet dreams during fasting nullify the fast. I don't think any of the ustads have mentioned that. They didn't mention wet dream. What they said is ejaculation or masturbation, which is different from wet dreams. But I would like our ustads to answer this question. So if these wet dreams then comes whilst you're sleeping during the day, and not from getting close to your wife, does that still break the fast?
Yeah, wet dreams does not invalidate your fast. When you have a wet dream, wake up, go have your ghusl, and you are very good to go. I think one thing I should actually add to that is Allah subhanahu at night, you met with your wife, with your spouse, with your husband, then you sleep over until you wake up after Fajr and you've not done your ghusl. There is nothing wrong with your sawm. You just need to do your ghusl and go. The fact that you're going to do ghusl during Ramadan does not mean it's invalidated. Even on Jummah in Ramadan, you still do your sunnatul ghusl and all of those things. So when you have a wet dream, just wake up, salam alaikum, go and take your ghusl and you continue your fasting. Nothing is wrong with you. In fact, you're going to have reward of performing ghusl again. Allah.
So don't be confused. There's another confusion here, which I don't think it should happen. They thought you said if you intentionally break your fast in the month of Ramadan, you have to pay back 60. No, none of the imams have said that, or their teachers have said that. What they've said, according to what Ustaz Ibrahim Ahmed mentioned, is that the only situation, and we should learn that now, the only situation where you have to do kafara is when you have, marital relations with your spouse. Every other thing, you could be sinful and you pay back that day, but no kafara, no 60 fasting. Okay? So the only situation where you do that,
you mentioned it.
I think
scholars.
Yeah, I think Dr. Let me quickly come in there. The stance of the madhab of Imam Malik is that person who deliberately eats. If you are in the part of Africa, Morocco, Nigeria, you hear our scholars, what they will tell you is that if you deliberately eat or drink, you are going to pay qada and kafara, and you're going to pay 60. And that opinion stands in the madhab of Imam Malik. Nothing changes it. However, we are saying other scholars, majority of the scholars of the opinion that no, because the saving delil they have is that the person that came to the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said he had intercourse, and the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said fast 60. Imam Malik was saying that if somebody had come to the Rasul and say, I deliberately eat, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is going to say fast 60 because they committed one thing. They do intihak hurmat sawm. Is this whatever means that you used to break your soul deliberately in madhab of Imam Malik, whatever means you are paying 60. Other scholars are saying that only sexual intercourse, conjugal relationship with your wife is the only thing. So people should know. So if you find yourself in Africa or the school of thought of Malik, or Ana Maliki, you are going to pay 60. However, for ease for the Ummah, majority of the scholars are of the opinion that no, if you deliberately eat or drink, you are a sinner, but you will not pay 60. Imam Malik is saying, why do you say he's a sinner anyway? So he's a sinner. So we should know that stands, the opinion is there. However, we tell the fatwa that majority of scholars do is that the person is not going to do 60 because they did not see direct hadith on that.
I hope that is clear now, inshallah. I hope that is clear, inshallah. So, inshallah, you should be fine. You don't have to do 60 for now, unless you find yourself in some place in Africa, inshallah.
No, and if you want to do 60, do 60.
Why not? That's fine as well. So, the other question, the Imam, if you could answer this question. If someone converts to Islam just before Ramadan and he finds it difficult fasting Ramadan, do they still have to pay back all those fasts that they missed during the early stages?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Now, let us be realistic with ourselves. Now, Islam normally comes in different stages, and Islam recognizes the ability of human being. Okay. Now, if somebody has never fasted before in their life, and then they try Ramadan and they are unable to do it as a new Muslim, okay. Now, first of all, as a new Muslim, you should try. You should try. But if you fast, whether you're a new Muslim or a non-Muslim, or whether you're a new Muslim or you were born into Islam, if you fast and you feel that if I don't break this fast, I am going to faint, I will die. All the Muslims says, all the scholars say, you break that fast. Okay? They say, you break that fast and pay it back the other time. That is one. Two, now, as a new Muslim, I will advise you to try and fast. But if you also feel that I can't do it, I feel that I'm going to die, then you break it. Till you are able to, but you should know that it's one of the things that is what? Compulsory on you to do that. Now, the fast that you missed before Islam, before you accepted Islam, you are not obliged to fasting. No. Now, the one that you miss after you have accepted Islam, and you know that it is compulsory on you, but you still did not do it, then that is similar to the question Ustaz answered before, that you try and estimate them and fast them. Maybe you can try to fast them when it is in the winter, when the days are very short, when you do your sahur at 6:30 and you break at 3:30. So you can target to pay those kind of fast at that time. So that is the advice I'm going to give to that person, and Allah knows best.
Jazakumullah khair. Two questions together for you, Ustaz Ibrahim. Somebody's eating sahur and it's time for fajr. Two questions underneath that. Can they finish the food in their mouth? Or can they finish the whole food? If you have only eaten half of my inyo, can I finish the rest of my inyo when the time fajr? And the second question that comes with that is, when the adhan is actually going on and I'm still eating, can I continue eating until they finish the adhan, even though it's time for fajr?
I sincerely do have problem with the should I say the dalil that people quote on this. And it is not a strong one anyway. And this is what we were saying, that we should be careful and plan for Ramadan, plan our sahur, plan our iftar. Once it is time for salat, assalamu alaikum to sahur. The one you are allowed to swallow, according to some scholars, is the one that is in your mouth, not the one in your hand. Even at that stage, at the worst, that's the worst case scenario. The one in your mouth. Not because, alhamdulillah, it is all the food together and it is still inside one plate. Now let me finish it. you are eating breakfast. That's not sahur. You're eating breakfast. So I think the two questions are linked together. Then the same thing with adhan. There's nothing like when they are calling adhan. There's nothing like that. The sahur is gone. It's no longer time for sahur. They call adhan. The time they call for adhan is when it is no longer fajr. It's after fajr. And once it is fajr, no more eating, no more drinking. That is it. You are fasting from fajr, once the first time of the fajr, till ghurub shams, till sunset. So if you are eating, adhan is called when they are doing so. And I don't think here in I've not come across here in the UK mosque where they call to adhan. In some part of Africa, they call to adhan. It is taqlid. It is not as if there is a sunnah. And there is something they were referring back to during the time of Abdullah ibn Maktoum is going to call one, Bilal is going to call another one. But adhan has nothing to do with sahur. Know the time of your sahur, know the ending time, and stop eating at that point in time. If you are told, no, it is no longer sahur, the one in your mouth, you can swallow, the one in your hand, you drop it. Allah.
Now, I want you to answer this question, which is related to that. Now, going to iftar, okay, is it a condition that you have to have called the adhan before you actually start breaking your fast? Because in some masajid, they delay the adhan for some reason, and people will be waiting for the adhan to be called even when it's time for iftar. Or is it a condition that you have to wait until the adhan is called, even if it's time for iftar?
I think earlier I mentioned a qaida fiqhiyya that there is no linkage between adhan and sahur. There is no relationship between adhan and iftar. Adhan could be delayed. You could have in your own mosque, adhan is planned in the mosque at mosque level. You could say our own adhan, we'll call it after we finish eating, as it is time for Maghrib. So you could delay adhan 20 minutes, 10 minutes, depending on when that mosque want to observe their salat. So iftar is not when they call adhan. Iftar is when it is iftar, and adhan should be called after iftar, after it is time for iftar. So there is no condition saying that you wait for adhan. And also because probably, I'm just thinking, probably reason why people are asking this, because when we get into the mosque, people are doing adhan, and we cannot do maybe a rak'ah to do nafila because they are calling adhan. That is because for us to gain the reward of repeating what the muadhin is saying. It's not because we cannot do that. But iftar, muadhin is the one having the issue of calling adhan. That's his own issue to bear. For you, your own issue at that point in time is to eat whatever you can eat as far as it is halal. Wallah.
Alhamdulillah. I'm very conscious of time, and time is finished. I've not picked up the question that are not related to Ramadan specifically because of time constraint. And the one on Hajj, I can recognize your question, but unfortunately there's no time to answer that. And the one on the Madhhab, I can recognize that as well, but there's no time to answer that. And the one that was asking about if you are not matured and you broke fast during Ramadan, do you have to pay 60 back? No, you are not even obliged to fast in the first place. So you don't have to pay any 60 back. Okay. I think we'd end it there unless now.
Can I add something to that last question? Is because during the day, someone could come to a stage of puberty during the day in the month of Ramadan. A male who has not had a wet dream could have a wet dream while in Ramadan. A female who has never had menstruation before could have it during the time of Ramadan. At that point in time, which is in the noon, during the time of imsak, the person should stop eating and drinking at that moment and continue fasting. Scholars of the opinion that after Ramadan, he or she is going to pay back that one day just to make a complete day of Ramadan. And it's not expected if it is in the middle of Ramadan, it's only going to start on that day that happened to the person, because this could happen. Just to mention that.
Jazakumullah khan.
Sheikh Abdul Majid, can I just add a little bit of something? Now,
please, very quickly, Ustaz, please.
People keep linking adhan and sahur and iftar together. Yeah, it was like that in the beginning because those mu'adhin, they used to make adhan based on the appearance of fajr. But these days, people put timing in it. So now say you have the first thing, as we have recommended, is that try as much as possible to finish your sahur about 15 minutes before the end of your adhan time on your phone, the app that you are using. But say that you wake up late, it's just 2 minutes before the end. That is It happened on that day once in a while. It happened. You are now eating. As you are eating, you have food in your hand. Your phone now say, your phone alarm then rings out to say sahur is finished. So in that case, what do you do? Now in Sunan Abi Dawud and Mustadrak Imam Hakim, and the hadith is said to be authentic, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ida sami'a ahadukum an-nida," when one of you hears the adhan, which is to say that the Fajr has now ended, wal inahi ala yadi, and the food, the vessel of food is in his hand. فَلَا يَدَعْهُ حَتَّى يَقْضِيَ حَاجَتَهُ. Don't leave it down until you have satisfied, until you have fulfilled your need in it. So this is the evidence that scholars use, that the food in your hand, you can finish it in that kind of situation. But al-ahwat, the safer thing is for you to always avoid that time. We are talking about when you have this kind of thing, then happens to you because you woke up late and Allah is special.
So we end it there. Jazakumullahu khairan to our two ustaz for this beautiful presentation. I have learned a lot. I'm sure we have all learned a lot. So this will be the final usra before the month of Ramadan, which will start in the next 3 to 4 days. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us witness many more Ramadan. So in place of our fortnightly usra, we'll be having weekly tafsir session. So Saturdays and Sundays throughout the month of Ramadan. And at the end of the month of Ramadan, the last 10 days, we'll be having on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So the theme for this year Ramadan tafsir sessions is "and do good that you may be successful." And do good that you may be successful. For next weekend, because of the issues with changing of time, the time for next Saturday will be 2 p.m. Join us, inshallah. And from Sunday, it will be the same time as the time in Nigeria for those of us living in Nigeria, because the time would have moved forward, I believe. So we're still going to be starting at 2 p.m. at the time then, inshallah. So please join us during this session. It will be very enlightening. The scholars will be going through different ayats of the Quran, and I'm sure we'll benefit from them. For our youth as well, for this youth, like we've been doing, we are doing our Recite and Rise program. Those who are memorizing the Quran, the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the month of Ramadan is the month of the Quran as well, meaning that we want to encourage our youth to recite and to memorize the Quran. So that will be ongoing. We've been sending out the registration. Register your kids. It will be for about 2 weeks, inshallah, where you would have imams and hufaz themselves that are skilled in the Quranic recitation, listening to our kids and correcting them and encouraging them, inshallah. And you listen to other people. There's no other good deed you could do in the month of Ramadan apart from the book of Allah, building relationship with the book of Allah. And I hope, inshallah, that we'll see you there. And I hope, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and make us witness many more Ramadan Mubarak in advance. On this note, unless our ustaz have any final notes, inshallah, I think we'll call it to a close, inshallah. Any final words from you, Imam Nuruddin? Imam Ustaz Ibrahim Ahmed?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Except for people just to try as much as possible to make best use of this Ramadan as if it's going to be their last Ramadan. And let us welcome Ramadan with sincere repentance, hoping for the forgiveness and salvation of Allah from the first night.
Inshallah. Ameen. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. We'll see you next Saturday. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.